Okay, let's dive in. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, two undeniably iconic figures, right? Billionaires who have fundamentally shifted the landscape of technology and, well, our lives.
Absolutely. Titans of innovation, you could say.
Definitely. Yet, despite that shared status, their approaches to pretty much everything, their visions, their companies, even their disagreements, seem worlds apart.
Well, then we're different.
Remember that whole idea of a cage fight? It really just, underscored how distinct these two individuals actually are.
It's a fascinating study in contrasts, really. Here you have two people who've reached the absolute pinnacle of tech and economic influence. But the paths they took, their perspectives on the future, they diverge in almost every way imaginable.
That makes their interactions, their ongoing competition, incredibly insightful for understanding the bigger tech world, doesn't it?
Exactly. It gives you a window into those dynamics.
Absolutely. So in this deep dive, we're zeroing in on the story of Elon versus Mark. We'll be looking at their very different beginnings, what sparked this ongoing rivalry.
The whole bizarre cage fight chapter.
Oh, yeah, that. And their contrasting visions for tomorrow. The massive companies they built, their distinctive leadership styles, and the public images they've carefully,
And sometimes not so carefully.
right, cultivated. Our goal here is really to extract the essential insights into these two powerful personalities without, hopefully, overwhelming you with just too much detail.
And if you think about the bigger picture, looking at these two gives us a really valuable lens, I think, to understand the fundamental forces shaping tech today. The tension between different philosophies of innovation and their impact on society.
Let's start right at the beginning then. Their origins. The contrast is just, well, stark.
It really is.
Elon was born in Pretoria, South Africa, and from a young age, he was just like consumed by space, science, computers.
Yeah, he taught himself programming super early, didn't he? Sold a video game at 12.
Yeah, 12.
Yeah.
Just incredible drive even then.
That early, intense focus on technical stuff is common, sure, but notice the difference in what he focused on. Elon's early passions pointed towards the physical, the theoretical space, fundamental science. It really foreshadows his later stuff, like rockets and electric cars. Suggests a mind drawn to these huge, almost physics-based problems.
That's a great point. Okay, now contrast that with Mark. Born in White Plains, New York. His interests, languages, history, and yeah, computers too.
Right, and he built that messaging system, ZuckNet, for his family around the same age, 12.
Similar age, similar tech interest, but a wholly different application right from the start. Focused on connecting people.
Exactly. Mark's early projects already hinted at that core drive. Creating networks, platforms for communication. ZuckNet connecting his family was like a tiny version of Facebook, wasn't it?
Yeah, you can see the seed right there. That focus on connection is the key thing, is really telling.
Definitely.
And their personalities, even back then, seem pretty different. Elon's describes himself as shy, even bullied sometimes, but holding on to these huge dreams about space and the future.
While Mark seemed maybe more confident and very focused on that core idea of connecting people.
It feels like those early personality traits haven't just stuck around. They've almost amplified as they've become these massive leaders.
I think so. Elon's willingness to embrace risk, stir things up, seems rooted in those early unconventional dreams. Mark's more controlled, measured approach fits with managing this vast network of users.
Their education paths show the difference too. Elon, after moving from Canada, ends up at UPenn studying physics and economics.
Which is a really interesting mix, right? Fundamental laws and how the world works financially.
Yeah. And Mark famously goes to Harvard, but drops out at 19 to go all in on Facebook.
That contrast in their approach to formal education is quite revealing, I think. Elon gets this broad theoretical foundation, which probably helps with solving complex physical problems.
Right.
Mark's decision to leave Harvard, it highlights a different priority: speed, execution, getting the thing built and out there. Just two very different ways to acquire and use knowledge.
And then the early ventures really set the stage. Elon was Zip2, then X.com, which became PayPal.
Laying groundwork in online services, financial tech.
Exactly. And Mark, of course, with Facebook. Started for students, then just exploded globally.
And again, those early successes mirrored their interests. Elon was tackling internet infrastructure, online commerce. Mark was straight into the social layer, connecting people.
From there, their big company, their core focuses just went in totally different directions. Elon's portfolio, so like a list of humanity's biggest challenges, isn't it?
Totally. Tesla for electric cars, SpaceX for rockets, Neuralink for brain-computer stuff, the Boring Company digging tunnels.
It's all about tackling these fundamental physical limits, pushing boundaries.
Very outward-facing ambition, grand challenges in energy, transport, even biology.
Now compare that with Mark's empire under Meta. You've got Facebook itself, the giant, Instagram for pictures, WhatsApp for messaging.
Oculus VR pushing into the metaverse.
Right? It's all digital networks, data, and increasingly these immersive digital experiences.
Mark's focus has consistently been on boosting human connection, right? Though it's evolved from text to photos, now to this idea of shared virtual spaces. Buying Instagram and WhatsApp just cemented that dominance in digital social stuff.
So when you boil it down, their core visions are just fundamentally different paths. Elon's looking out space, humanity's future, science, engineering.
While Mark's looking more inward at our digital lives, wanting to deepen those connections in digital realms.
It's maybe the most defining thing about their rivalry, that fundamental difference in long-term goals.
It really is. Elon wants to solve existential threats, get us off Earth. Mark wants to transform our digital existence right here. They're almost pulling in opposite directions.
And even their personalities, like we touched on. Elon, bold, often dramatic, you never know what's next.
Totally unpredictable.
And Mark.
Hey.
Much more reserved, controlled, careful. His public statements are usually very measured.
And those personalities likely shape their company cultures, right? Elon's dynamism probably means high risk, high reward. Mark's reserve might lead to something more structured, data-driven.
So given these two incredibly powerful guys with such different ways of seeing the world, it was almost like inevitable they'd clash eventually.
You could see it coming, couldn't you? Disagreements about the future, technology's role. It seems almost preordained.
Exactly. When you have two people with that much influence and such fundamentally different views on big issues, friction is almost guaranteed.
Definitely.
Okay, so that brings us to where the rivalry really heated up the whole debate around AI, the criticisms of social media, and the very public drama. AI became a huge point of friction fast.
And what's interesting is they both saw AI's importance early on, just with completely opposing views on what it meant.
Exactly. Elon, with that famous line about summoning the demon, really framed advanced AI as this potential existential threat. He was vocal about the dangers, even co-founded OpenAI, which is kind of ironic now.
A little bit, yeah.
With the goal of guiding AI development for humanity's benefit.
Elon's worries seem to come from this long-term, almost philosophical place. What if AI gets beyond our control, has different goals? His OpenAI involvement was trying to shape it safely from the start.
Then you've got Mark, who presented AI much more as this amazing tool for good, something to improve lives, boost safety, make things better, Remember that 2017 live video?
Vaguely.
He basically dismissed the fear-mongering as irresponsible.
Mark's view seems more focused on the near-term uses,
Yeah.
Using AI to make current tech better, solve specific problems. He seems more confident that we can manage it for good outcomes.
Which, as you can imagine, did not sit well with Elon.
Yeah.
He fired back pretty quickly on Twitter, saying Mark's understanding of AI was limited. That was direct.
Very public, very pointed. It really showed that deep philosophical gap between them.
And that public exchange, it was a real escalation, wasn't it? Moving from just different ideas to direct personal criticism showed how differently they viewed tech risk, their overall optimism or pessimism about AI's future impact.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just AI. Elon also got really critical of social media, especially Facebook, particularly after things like the Cambridge Analytica data leak.
Right, that amplified existing worries about data privacy manipulation on these platforms. Elon's criticisms tapped into that growing public unease.
And his response was pretty dramatic. He just deleted the official Facebook pages for Tesla and SpaceX.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and then tweeted #DeleteFacebook, which actually trended for a bit. It was a very public rejection.
That's a strong statement. Hitting his own company's visibility on Facebook and urging others to leave too showed he thought the harm outweighed the value.
And again, you see the contrast in how they use social media themselves. Elon's famously active, often provocative on Twitter, now X, sharing thoughts, memes, everything.
Unfiltered, yeah.
Always much more private, carefully managed online persona.
Their different styles online reflect their broader communication styles, probably their strategic goals too. Elon uses it directly, embraces the chaos. Mark treats it more like careful PR, strategic messaging.
It loops back to those core beliefs, doesn't it? Elon building physical stuff, Mark connecting people digitally, leads naturally to these different goals. Mars versus the metaverse.
Their fundamental ideas about progress, about the biggest challenges, directly shape the futures they're trying to build. They're just very different futures.
You even see it in their financial strategies. Elon often reinvesting heavily, taking huge risks, sometimes stretching himself thin personally.
Right, pushing for those moonshots, basically.
While Mark has generally focused more on steady growth, stability, for the massive meta enterprise.
Elon's risk tolerance fits his big vision, trying to do the impossible. Mark's more measured approach is maybe what you need for managing a huge public company with billions of users and lots of regulatory eyes on it.
So this rivalry, it really grew beyond just business competition. It became this very public clash of fundamental ideas, and the public kind of took sides on AI risk, social media's impact, all that.
Yeah, the public nature of it turned it from just boardroom stuff into this broader cultural debate about where technology is taking us.
And then things got really weird. In June 2023, completely out of the blue, Elon just jokes on Twitter about wanting a cage match with Mark.
Just surreal. Took the rivalry somewhere totally unprecedented. Bizarre, frankly.
Totally bizarre.
Yeah.
And then Mark's response, equally surprising. Send me location on his Instagram story.
The internet just lost its mind.
Completely. It instantly became this symbolic showdown, right? Not just two guys, but their whole empires, their different visions for the future, all condensed into this potential fight.
Yeah, the idea of a physical fight, however nuts, tapped into that deeper narrative of competition, dominance in tech. It was like a potential, very visible explosion of their ongoing conflicts.
And the contrast in their prep was almost funny. We found out Mark actually trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's competed, won medals.
Right, he's actually got skills.
While Elon seemed to be mostly, joking about lifting weights.
Mark's actual training added this weird layer of like, wait, could this actually happen? While Elon's casual approach was just classic Elon bravado mixed with not taking things too seriously, maybe.
Then Elon suggests live streaming it on X proceeds to veterans' charities.
Just adding more layers to the spectacle. The charity angle kind of framed it as something bigger than just a personal spat, didn't it?
Totally. And the internet reaction was exactly what you'd expect. Memes everywhere, crazy fan theories. Dana White practically offered to stage it immediately.
It just captured the public imagination like a normal business rivalry never, ever could.
It really highlighted our fascination with these larger-than-life figures, didn't it? How we engage even with the wildest scenarios involving them. They're almost mythical figures in pop culture. But underneath the jokes, there was a real current of ego, leadership dynamics in tech, especially with Elon having just bought Twitter, renaming it X, talking about making it this everything app.
Yeah, Elon's plans for X were a direct challenge to established platforms, including Meta stuff. That just turned up the heat between them even more.
And then Mark hits back almost immediately with Threads.
Right. A direct Twitter competitor, launched fast, got tons of users right away.
It felt like a real-world counterpunch in this weird maybe fight. Like, okay, you want to compete, here you go.
The quick success of Threads showed Meta could absolutely go head-to-head with X in that space. Just another layer on the tech and business rivalry.
So this whole potential cage fight thing just became another symbol for the whole tech war, right? X versus Meta, AI risk versus AI potential, Mars versus Meta.
Musk versus Zuckerberg. It all got wrapped up in the idea of this physical fight.
But then, almost as fast as it blew up, the talk just fizzled out.
Yeah, it kind of faded, didn't it?
Elon mentioned needing surgery, maybe? And Mark basically said, look, if he's not serious, I'm moving on.
The ending was a bit anticlimactic, maybe showed how much of it was just performance art. But the underlying competition, that didn't go away.
Not at all. Even without a physical fight, the real competition for our attention, our data, our future just kept going through their apps, their AI work, their totally different ambitions.
Canceling the fight didn't change the actual battle in the digital world. It just went back to the usual arenas. Innovation, market share.
And it really made you wonder, was the whole cage match thing some kind of bizarre marketing stunt? Or just a sign of how weirdly personal things can get at the top of the tech world now?
That ambiguity, was it real? Was it PR? That just added to the whole mystique, blurred the lines even more.
Either way, the fight that never happened became one of the most talked about things of the year, which is pretty wild.
Says a lot about their influence, doesn't it? That the possibility of it grabbed headlines like that.
Absolutely. So let's pivot now and talk about their actual visions for the future, because that's really the heart of this rivalry, isn't it? Who do they think will shape tomorrow?
This is where those fundamental differences really come into sharp focus and where the long-term stakes are highest.
Elon's vision, like we said, is heavily focused on becoming a multi-planet species. He sees it as essential for survival, given threats to Earth.
Drives SpaceX, the Mars City goal.
Right. And then you've got Tesla tackling climate change, Neuralink trying to link brains and computers, XX as this global town square for free speech. It's all huge scale stuff.
Elon's vision is defined by that grand scale, right? Tackling existential risks, trying to dramatically expand human civilization. There's often that sense of urgency, belief in radical tech solutions.
Mark's vision, much more digital, focused on the internet, especially the metaverse, this immersive 3D virtual space for work, play, socializing.
That's the driving force behind Meta's big VRR push, the Quest headsets and all that.
Exactly. Plus, he's still committed to global connection through Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, but with maybe more talk now about digital well-being, privacy, In theory, anyway.
Mark's vision is about transforming our digital interactions, making them more immersive, more connected online. The metaverse is his bet on shared virtual spaces being fundamental, and connection through the existing platforms is still core.
And their leadership styles really reflect these visions, don't they? Elon often loud, controversial, inspires some, infuriates others. Genius to fans, reckless to critics.
Very dynamic, disruptive style.
Mark, generally seen as calm, private, careful, rarely off script. Brilliant strategist to some, maybe a bit robotic or distant to others.
Much more measured, analytical. It links directly to their company cultures, their approaches to innovation and risk. Elon's style fosters rapid change. Mark's prioritizes long-term planning, stability.
So who's winning this race to shape the future? It's almost impossible to say, right? Depends on your metric. Money, influence. Whose vision you like more?
Exactly. They trade places on wealth lists. Their influence is huge, but in different areas. Winning is complicated here. Who's perceived as winning might just depend on which vision ends up aligning more with where society actually goes.
And I think the really interesting part is maybe they're both right and wrong about different things. Their different ideas force us to ask these huge questions.
Like what?
Like, do we need to leave Earth or fix Earth? Should we fear AI or embrace it? Is the future physical or virtual? Fast innovation or careful development?
Their different visions act as this great catalyst for debate about technology's future, its impact. They highlight the trade-offs in the choices we're facing.
Ultimately, it feels like the future won't be just one path, right? It'll be a mix. Maybe we need some of Elon's wild ambition and Mark's strategic discipline. Big dreams and smart systems, invention and connection.
The future's rarely just one story. It's shaped by lots of forces, and both their contributions, despite the differences, will probably play a big role.
Exactly. And their companies are the engines driving these visions. Tesla versus Meta, SpaceX versus Reality Labs, they're extensions of the men themselves.
Absolutely. The companies aren't just about profit, they're the tools they're using to actively build the future they envision.
Look at Tesla. Started almost as this idealistic mission, right? Prove electric cars could be better than gas, tackle climate change.
Elon jumped in, wasn't a founder, but became the driving force.
Right, pushed it through near bankruptcy multiple times. Sheer determination, insane work ethic now. Most valuable car company, innovating constantly in EVs, solar, batteries. The culture feels as fast and disruptive as him.
Tesla's story is pure Elon, isn't it? High risk, high reward, unwavering belief, even when things look terrible. That relentless innovation culture is a direct reflection.
Then there's Meta. Started as Facebook in a dorm room, grew to connect billions globally, stated mission, build community, bring the world closer.
Mark's leadership there seems more structured, data-driven, focused on long-term growth.
Even while facing massive criticism over privacy, misinformation, data security, all that stuff.
Yeah, big challenges.
And the rebrand of Meta, the huge investment in Reality Labs, even with losses there now, shows his long-term commitment to the metaverse vision.
Meta's shift from just social media to metaverse illustrates Mark making big strategic bets for his long-term vision, even with major investment and skepticism.
And at SpaceX, just an incredibly audacious goal. Reusable rockets, travel to Mars. People thought a private company couldn't possibly do it.
Dismissed it outright, many did.
But Elon kept at it through failures. Now, SpaceX does things only governments used to do. First, private company to send people to the ISS, developing Starship for Moon and Mars. It's all about physically getting humanity off Earth.
SpaceX really embodies Elon's ambition for those huge, seemingly impossible challenges.
Yeah.
Reusable rockets aiming for Mars. It's a radical break from the old aerospace ways.
Which is such a stark contrast to Meta's Reality Labs. Elon wants to physically leave Earth, Mark wants to kind of rebuild it digitally with the metaverse, Horizon Worlds, that sort of thing. Really highlights that physical versus digital split.
The contrast between SpaceX's outward physical goals and Reality Labs' inward digital focus perfectly sums up their different visions for human experience.
And that difference shows up in how they run things, too, right?
Yeah.
Elon favoring radical freedom, super fast change, sometimes bordering on chaos.
While Mark prioritizes systems, data, structure, protection through policies and design, you really see their personalities in the company's DNA.
Absolutely. Their leadership styles are baked into how their companies operate product development, risk tolerance, employee culture, strategy, everything.
For sure.
Ultimately, despite all the valid criticisms, Tesla, SpaceX, Meta, they're undeniably huge forces, changing how we live, move, communicate. Elon's companies feel like they're trying to break free from the present.
While Mark seemed more focused on transforming our current reality, both are right at the forefront of innovation, driving massive changes despite controversies.
So let's dig a bit deeper into those leadership styles, because understanding how they lead is key to understanding them and their companies. It really is like chaos versus control.
Their styles aren't just quirks, they're fundamental to how their companies work and how they chase those huge goals.
With Elon, it's that relentless urgency, right? Always a perceived crisis, incredibly long hours expected. He's known for ignoring rules, making fast, sometimes impulsive decisions.
Firings, project cancellations.
Yeah, and positioning himself as this mission commander, saving humanity. It seemed to create intense loyalty in believers, but also, understandably, chaos and pressure.
Elon's style is high intensity, results first. Demands extreme commitment, constant challenging of norms. That mission commander thing gives purpose, urgency, but the rapid decisions and high expectations can make it a volatile place to work.
Mark's style seems much more measured, logical, calculated, big emphasis on systems, data-driving decisions, careful long-term planning.
Calm intensity, often described that way. Relying on metrics, what does the data say? Must be heard a lot at Meta.
Right. It tends to create a more organized, predictable environment. Though critics say it can be too corporate, slow down innovation, and Mark himself can seem distant, hard to read.
Mark's leadership is more structured, analytical. Data, process, long-term strategy are key. That brings stability, predictability, but yeah, maybe slower innovation sometimes and a less emotionally connected leadership feel.
It's almost a perfect comparison, isn't it? Inspirational, unpredictable, Elon versus strategic, distant Mark. Urgency instinct versus logic systems. Cult of personality versus culture of performance.
Those contrasts highlight the main tools they use to motivate. Elon uses charisma, audacious vision. Mark uses data, established processes.
But the amazing thing is both styles have led to incredibly successful, influential companies. Really shows there's no single right way to lead right. Effectiveness is tied to the person, the vision, getting people on board.
Their parallel successes with such different approaches prove that. Effective leadership comes in many forms, depending on context, strengths, goals.
I like the analogy of working for Elon being like jumping on a super fast, maybe dangerous train. Might crash, but could reach amazing places quickly.
And working for Mark is more like entering a structured lab.
Yeah.
Progress might be more measured, but maybe more predictable, based on solid analysis.
Yeah. Those capture the different vibes, the risk profiles, the cultures their styles create.
Definitely.
Ultimately, it seems the key is having that compelling vision and being able to bring people along, whether it's through Elon's fire or Mark's strategic approach.
Yeah, regardless of how they do it, both have shown this incredible ability to articulate a vision and inspire huge teams to dedicate themselves to making it happen.
Okay, so we've hit origins, rivalry, visions, companies, leadership styles. Let's talk public image, because that's huge today, especially in tech, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. How you're perceived can impact everything. And Musk and Zuckerberg have navigated this very differently.
Elon feels like he has multiple personas, almost. You've got the hero image, bold, visionary, modern inventor, the Tony Stark comparison, admired for risk-taking, big achievements.
Right, the groundbreaking stuff.
But then there's the villain narrative. Careless billionaire, erratic behavior, firing by tweet, controversial statements, seem as reckless by some.
Causes a lot of backlash.
And then layer 3, the meme lord, Elon. Self-deprecating humor, embracing internet culture, chief twit. It feels deliberate playing with all these images.
Elon's use of social media is really skillful, often unconventional. He engages directly, uses humor, embraces the memes, it builds connection with fans, but also fuels controversy. Seems like a calculated way to stay in the spotlight.
Mark's image has had a different arc. Started as the boy wonder, right? Harvard prodigy, changed communication.
The hoodie in the early days.
Yeah. But as Facebook got huge, controversies mounted, fake news, data privacy, mental health concerns, the narrative shifted. People started asking, is he helping or hurting? Cambridge Analytica really amplified that.
He often came across as very calm, controlled in public.
Maybe too controlled. Sometimes read as emotionless, didn't always help him seem relatable.
Yeah, that perception was out there.
And then the whole metaverse thing, the avatar mockery initially, the meta rebrand. Some saw it as out of touch, though lately it feels like he's trying to show a more personal side.
Mark's image feels more reactive, shaped by the huge successes and controversies of his companies. Young visionary got overshadowed by scrutiny over ethics, impact. The rebranding and recent image shifts reflect the ongoing challenge of managing perception when your creations are so influential and complex.
It's striking how both have these super strong bases of supporters and detractors. They really represent different values, different approaches to power in tech.
Their polarized images reflect how complex our feelings are about the huge power tech leaders wield now. They embody different ideals, different anxieties about where tech is going.
And that fire versus ice analogy seems to fit their public personas too. Elon constantly stoking the flames, positive or negative. Mark often cooler, more controlled in public.
Yeah, that metaphor works well for how they engage publicly, manage their images, reflects their personalities and communication strategies.
So as we wrap this deep dive up, what are the big takeaways? What does this whole Musk versus Zuckerberg rivalry really teach us? Beyond the memes, the maybe fight, what are the lessons on innovation, risk, responsibility?
Their rivalry gives us real insight into that mix, doesn't it? Tech innovation, the need for risk, and the crucial ethical side that comes with having so much power.
Well, first off, both are undeniably visionaries. Took bold, unconventional ideas and made them real against the odds. Elon with reusable rockets, mass EVs, Mark with global social connection, now the metaverse push.
Incredible achievements.
But I think a key lesson is radical innovation is exciting, it can change the world, but it's most valuable, most sustainable when it's guided by a strong sense of responsibility for its impact.
Their successes show the power of vision, but also highlight how vital it is to align innovation with ethics with a deep sense of responsibility for the consequences.
And then there's risk. Elon took massive gambles, faced near failure with SpaceX, Tesla. But his unwavering belief, willingness to risk it all, often led to the breakthroughs.
Yeah, his approach is high stakes.
Mark's risks, like the huge metaverse bet, might seem less dramatic day to day, but they're still enormous long-term plays. Huge potential reward or huge potential failure. Reminds you failure is part of innovation, right? Learning and recovering is key.
Their different risk styles show there are multiple ways to drive innovation. Elon's bet the company moves versus Mark's calculated long-term investments. Both show risk is essential for transformative ideas.
But maybe the most critical takeaway is about responsibility. Both have faced intense criticism over the consequences of their actions, their company's impact, whether it's employee treatment or reckless statements for Elon, or data privacy, misinformation, ethical issues at Meta. It just hammers home. Great power demands great responsibility. You can't just innovate without thinking hard about the ethics, the impact on people, society.
Their experiences really spotlight the ethical side of tech leadership. The criticism they face is a powerful reminder that chasing progress has to be balanced with deep thought about consequences for individuals, society, the future.
So ultimately, it feels like innovation and risk without responsibility. That can be a really dangerous mix. True leadership seems to be about balancing pushing boundaries with doing it thoughtfully, positively shaping the world.
The lessons here really underline how crucial it is to bake ethics and responsibility right into the core of innovation and leadership.
And reflecting on this whole deep dive, it really brings home that success isn't just about the groundbreaking idea. It's just as much about thinking through the consequences, handling the challenges, learning from failures, and keeping responsibility front and center.
Their journeys show that impactful innovation is rarely easy or clean, and that continuous learning, adapting, and ethical reflection are absolutely essential for lasting positive impact.
And that brings us to a really interesting question for you, our listener. Considering everything, who do you think is shaping the future in the best way? Is it Elon with his bold, disruptive, sometimes controversial moves, or Mark with his more strategic, planned, maybe more cautious vision?
It's a compelling question, isn't it? Given their starkly different approaches and visions, it really invites us all to think about our own values and priorities for technology's future.
We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments.
Please do share.
Absolutely. And if you found this deep dive into the fascinating dynamic between these two tech titans insightful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications.
So you won't miss our future explorations.
Exactly. Future explorations into innovation, leadership, and the captivating stories behind the people shaping our world. Thanks so much for joining us.